Hello and welcome to my channel, C4 Fin Arts. Today we are making an ultra realistic largemouth bass swim bait. This ended up being one of the most realistic fish I've ever carved. So thanks for being here and let's get started. To begin, I'll start by cutting out my template and tracing it on to my block of wood. And now I'll move on to my fancy bandsaw from the 1800s. This thing is so fancy, I have to clamp the wheels. If I don't, it'll roll away and I'll probably cut myself. Hooray for that. If you'll notice, I'm keeping these cuttings as large as I can, and that is because we will be using them later on in the process. If you didn't notice that, then pay attention. Jeez. And since I suck at cutting things out on the bandsaw, we are moving on to the sander to clean things up just a little bit more. So next I gather up all of my cuttings in my trusty lighter and begin gluing back on all of the pieces, undoing all progress so far. By gluing these pieces back on, it does two things. It gives us a flat surface to draw on our top profile, as well as giving us a flat surface to go back onto our bandsaw and cut it out. For the top view, I like to draw just one half of it and then fold it in half and cut it out, and that just ensures that I get everything nice and symmetrically English. Now that I have the top profile drawn on, I'm ready to cut it out on the bandsaw. Yeah, I'm just kidding, we're not ready for that. So first I have to cut out the sections of the bait. And I do that just by using a jig and a handsaw, and I cut them out to the midline of the bait, not completing them, so that I can still carve the bait as one whole piece of wood. Okay, now bandsaw time. So this is just going to be the section for the plastic tail that I will be carving later. And now that we have everything cleaned up, we are almost finished with it. Yeah, not even close. Next, I'll begin drawing on the guidelines to add a bevel to the bait and begin rounding it off, getting it prepared to draw on the facial details. So for some background, I've been carving fish and lures for almost 10 years. So for this video, I just wanted to make the most realistic swim bait that I could make. Not only that, but a realistic swim bait that actually swims and hopefully catches fish. All too often I see people making swim baits that look great, but they really don't swim that well. So my goal is to use the skills that I've learned from fish carving, as well as the skills I've used from lure making, to make a great looking and great swimming swim bait. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I will show off some of the earlier bass swim baits that I've made, and we'll be able to compare the progress I've made throughout the years. Now that we have a smooth and rounded off bait, we will begin drawing on the facial details. So I like to start off with the eyes because it is the most simple thing that you can get lined up easily on both sides. And if you have both eyes lined up, you can guarantee that everything else will be lined up as well. Once I have all the details drawn on with pencil, I trace it with pen just to make it a little bit more permanent. To begin carving, I trace all of the details with my X-Acto knife, and then I can just begin carving away the wood. The key to detailed carving is having as many reference photos as you can, and then being able to decipher which areas of the bait need to be higher or lower than others. And then after that, you just start hacking away. It's really that easy. I realize that this part of the bait looks a little goofy, kind of looks like wrinkles on a fat grandpa, but you just gotta trust the process. It'll work out, I promise. A tip for all you wood carvers: when you get to this point of your carving, make sure you round off the parts that need rounded off. I see a lot of people who get these sharp lines and they just leave them like that and then smooth everything else out, but most of the time it is very important that you round off these sharp edges. So now that most of the carving is done, I'll take some sandpaper and begin smoothing everything out, getting rid of our fat grandpa wrinkles. I'll also use sandpaper glued to a popsicle stick to get into all of the smaller areas, and then I can begin working on the fins. Carving the fins is a similar process of tracing everything out with the knife, carving everything in between, getting it sanded, bing bang boom, fins. For some extra details, I will add some notches to the fins, and then I'll take my wood burner and add in the fin rays. Off camera, I made these eyes out of balsa using a drill as a lathe, so I'll begin gluing those into the face. Obviously, this has nothing to do with how it swims, it just makes it look nice. Next, I'll take some epoxy putty and create two very large balls and begin mixing those together. I'll then create what is known as a wormy dealy and use that to fill in all of the gaps. Then I can use my handy dandy finger tool as well as a popsicle stick to begin smoothing everything out. This is what I'm left with, and when it's cured, I'll begin using sandpaper to smooth it out even further. So that's looking pretty good. You can see we have the lateral line drawn on, and that's just going to guide us as we burn in the scales. This is the bait that I practiced the scales on, so we'll grab our wood burner and begin putting them in. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how I burn in the scales, but if you need a good tutorial on how to do it, look up the channel Danny Harris Arts. Not only does he go into great detail about how to burn in the scales on a fish, but he also shows you how to make this awesome wood burning tool. He's got great stuff, go check him out. So now our bait is completely carved out with all the details, so we'll begin by finishing the cuts, and then we can add in the weights and the hardware. notches that I'm carving out will give our hinges room to swing freely and give our bait some fantastic action. I hope. So you can tell here, this is how the bait is going to work. We have the wire as the hinge, and then we have the screw eyes, which is what the hinge will actually pivot on. And next I'll begin sealing all of these sections with a water-based sealer. So while those are drying, I can begin making the tail fin. This is actually the same material that I use for crankbait lips. You can also see I intended to have a back dorsal fin, but then I thought it looked too much like a trout's adipose fin, so I decided not to do that part. I found the easiest way to shape it out is on the sander. And after it's shaped out, I can begin rounding everything off with a sanding drum on my Dremel. So then I drew on the fin rays and with a different bit began shaping out the fin. So precisely here is where I cut through the fin, and after that I threw it at the wall, threw a childish fit, and then carved out a new tail fin. And the easiest way to get the notches on this plastic is just by using a wood burning tool. And then I'll begin cleaning everything up with my X-Acto knife and some sandpaper. I do apologize for what sounds like a rushing waterfall. I believe someone is taking a shower. I do this in my parents' basement. Please subscribe so I can get out. So next I'll begin drilling in the holes for our screw eyes, and this front one I ended up actually moving up further because it gave it a better swim action. Now that is starting to look like a daggum swim bait. So now it's time to add some weight. So I hot glued some to the bottom, and with my good friend Chonk, we tested it in the aquarium. Once I have all the weight where I liked it, I recess all the holes so I can begin putting in the weights. I actually ended up adding more to the front of the bait because the head wanted to tilt up, making the bait swim up to the top. So here's the original configuration before adding more weight, and here's how it swam after I added the weight. Pretty good. And here is the configuration after adding more weight. And just like the paint I used to eat as a kid, this thing is full of lead. And to fill in all the holes, I'll just use epoxy putty, and after that is cured, I'll sand it smooth. So next I'll slap down some Redneck's Best Friend, squeeze out some epoxy, begin mixing it up and gluing in all of our screw eyes. I found the best way to adequately get the epoxy into the hole is by spreading it on the screw eye, screwing it down, screwing it back out, redistributing the epoxy, and then screwing it down for a final time, which is probably overkill for the 1 pound fish I typically catch. Alright, the epoxy is cured. I went ahead and put on a base coat of white primer, and we can begin painting. For the first step, I cover the whole bait in black, and before it dries, I begin wiping it off. So what this will do is the paint will wipe off on the high spots, and the black will remain in all of the details. And next I'll take this yellow and spray it on pretty much the entire portion of the bait, all except the very bottom. And once that's dry, I'll spray white pearl on the bottom of the bait, fading it up towards the yellow, just towards the midsection. And next I'll go in with this chartreuse green just on the top portion of the bait. And next I'll go in with this green, spraying it on the top of the bait as well as some portions of the face. And next I'll use a very dark green, just squiggling it in at the top of the bait. And this will make some areas darker and some areas lighter, making it more natural and inconsistent. And next I'll load up some opaque white and begin covering up the black that is left over on the bottom of the bait. And then to give everything that nice fishy shine, we will take white pearl and spray that on the bottom to the midsection of the bait. And since I got a little heavy-handed with the white, I'll load up some yellow and spray that very lightly towards the midsection. And next I'll begin spraying on the horizontal markings with a dark green. I prefer dark green over black. I think it's more natural compared to a bold black color. And here I'm going back through, just adding some darker spots, making it more natural. And next I'll go in and add some dark markings just towards the top of the bait, and later on I'll go in and darken those up just a little bit. And now I'm just squiggling in some white towards the belly of the bait. So I began painting the eye, and then I realized I was not done with the body of the bait, and if I finished the eye, that probably some overspray from the airbrush would get onto it. So with a dark green, I began darkening up the top of the bait. So now I'll actually begin painting the eyes. So with a combination of brown, darker brown, and red, I'll begin adding in the details, and then I can paint in the pupil. And once I have the pupil roughed in, I'll take a combination of yellow, gold, and white and add that ring around the pupil. And then I'll just go back and clean it up with black. So because I'm dumb, I didn't record the part where I painted the black marks at the bottom or the eyelid, both of which I did with a paintbrush. But next we'll begin darkening up some areas of the face, as well as whitening up some areas of the gills. And next I'll add some pink for some fleshy tones, as well as add some light blue just to add more depth. The pec fin is just a mixture of yellow and dark brown, and to darken the tips of the fin, I just added more dark brown. So our last step before clear coating is scale tipping. The mixture I used for this is pearl white, gold, and green. I prefer this color more than just pure gold. I think it looks better and more true to what largemouth bass actually look like. So now that our bait is finished, we will move on to the tail fin. For this we use dark brown, black for the tip, and then also tan for in between the fin rays. And after we clear coat all of these sections, this lure is finished. So these are the first largemouth bass swim baits I've ever made. The left was in 2017 and the right was in 2018. And this is my most recent largemouth bass swim bait. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of this video. It means a lot to me and I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this bait and whether or not you would fish it, as well as if you have any other suggestions on what you want me to carve next. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.